So this bracelet I got to remember Tyler McKenzie. I always called him McKenzie. He was my best friend when I got basic, and I get to the Army. I mean, he was always like, huge, strong dude. I mean, he was like 6'7", like he was a huge guy, but really, really nice. He was my roommate in the barracks, and it's just like we always got along really well. I mean, took care of everything. We pooled money, you know what I mean? Because like we were private, so we didn't have a lot, but because we pooled assets, and we were able to have like a nice TV, and we always like bought movies together and stuff like that, and so it was always fun hanging out with him. And he was always like really nice to me, even though he didn't have to be. But he was a really thoughtful guy, and I liked that about him. Like I didn't really subscribe to like the whole like 1, 2, 3, 4 train to kill thing, where it's like these guys get out of basic and they just want to go friggin' slay bodies, and it's just, I don't know. I felt like that was a mistake, to assume it was going to be like that, and I felt like that mentality was generally pretty annoying and disrespectful, almost in a way, to those who had been there before, And he wasn't like that, just inherently, just a very good guy. He was a Mormon guy too. He never swore, he didn't drink, and he was just, I was probably, and he liked me anyway, because I was like that, you know what I mean? He never, was with any girls or anything like that, and I was constantly bringing girls back to the barracks. And, but yeah, no, he was like my best friend, and he'd sit there and talk, like he'd be able to have he was someone that you could have like a real conversation with without being judged. Talk about how much you're going to miss your family, or how scared, you may be before you go down range, like as it gets closer and closer to the day you're going to leave. And he was killed on the 2nd of November in 2005. And I wear it because I was so close to it. To the very last thing that he did was like that kindness. You know what I mean? The very last thing that he did was it. I mean, he was trying to be kind to me, and he died. And I feel like it's very important to remember him. We were out of the JSB. We were only supposed to be there for like a week, and ended up getting stretched out to like 30 plus days. And we didn't have electricity. We didn't have enough food. We didn't have enough water. It was to a point where it was like we would shave like once every 3 days. Like we were on such a limited water supply. And that was just, and that like doesn't happen in the Army. Like you shave no matter what. And you would fill some sandbags from like dusk till dawn, just fortifying positions, because it was like it was so far away from anything friendly. It was just like, that was like our Alamo, Like it was, and we were in contact like all the time. And finally the colonel came out to see the progress he was making. McKenzie had gotten yanked out of my platoon early on in the deployment. I got selected for personal security detail because he was so huge. And he was a good soldier, so it made sense. But they liked having big, intimidating guys in the personal security detail for the colonel, because, if they're out in like a market or something like that, they just want to be as imposing as possible to mitigate the chance of contact. So he got selected. He was a gunner for one of the trucks. And I'll never forget that. That beat me down, that first rotation out, because it was like, and I was still really homesick. Before I went down range, before I got on the chalk to fly into Yusufia, I was able to call my parents and be like, hey, I'm headed down. I don't know when I'm going to be able to call you again. Got down to the fob, phones and everything get mortared. So it's just we have no way to contact anybody. There's one phone and one computer that barely works. I'd been out in the field for, at that point, 30, some odd days. And I was just filthy, you'd have one significant meal, you'd have one MRE to last you throughout the day. So it's you would wait in line and you would get a handful of meat, and you would eat that. It was like war, what I thought it was going to be like. And then I'll never forget, towards the end of that, the colonel was visiting with the upper echelon leadership, and they were about to leave, but McKenzie was part of the personal security detail. So when they rolled up, I saw he was unmistakable, because he's so huge, even out of the turret. And I was like, oh man, it's McKenzie. It just made me happy, because he was my best friend. I got to see him. It was good to see that he was still doing well. And that he was safe and, you know, like he was still all clean and everything like that, you know, so it wasn't too bad on him, you know, and I was happy for him. But he had heard that he was coming out to where I was at, so he had brought me American cigarettes and beef jerky and all sorts of stuff. I mean, a goodie bag full of, you know, stuff that I would need. Like, he just thought about it. He thought about that all the time. He's like, oh, I'm going out to where Watt was going to be today, so, you know, I'm going to put together, I mean, he doesn't have anything out there, so I'm going to put together all this stuff for him, you know. At that time, I was off guard and I was playing poker with the guys, and I got up from the table and I just got out of a couple hands and I was talking with him and, you know, gave him a hug and I was like, man, it's good to see you. You know what I mean? He gave me all that stuff and I went down, you know, I showed him where, you know, where we were sleeping in the basement of this like bombed out water treatment facility. It was just haggard. And I was like, oh, you know, how are your parents doing and everything like that? And he's like, oh, they're good. You know what I mean? They're good. You know, it's like they got good phones up in Mama Dia, so I'm able to call them every day. And, you know, we don't spend like nights out in the field or anything like that. So it's like I get to talk to them all the time. And I was like, you know, I was like, bro, do you think you could call my parents? Because I haven't been able to talk to them in forever, you know. I just wanted to, like, and I was like homesick. Like, I don't know what it is, because I'm kind of like a nomad. I normally don't get that way, but I mean, I was pretty scared, and I mean, it's like the weight of that year when you're staring it down. Like when you hear about like, oh, it's a year-long deployment. You know, people are like, oh, a year, just a year. You know what I mean? But when you're staring a friggin' year in the face of like, you don't know what's going to happen, you know, like it's a long friggin' time, especially when you're living outside. Right away, like when he was like, yeah, I'll call your mom for you, I felt so much better. Like just, it was just like this weight that just, you know, like I could feel it like lifting off of my shoulders. And so he busted out his notepad and I wrote a note to my mom that I wanted him to read to my mom. And it wasn't super long, but it got what she needed to know across, like, hey, I'm fine, you know what I mean? Like, everything's okay, you know, we're settled in, I'm just out in the field, and, you know, I love you guys. You know, say hi to Lindsay and Darren, and, you know, tell Dad I love him, and, you know, I'm fine, I'll get on the phone as soon as I can, you know, Justin. And I gave it back to him, and he put it in his flak jacket. There's I mean, it's actually a pretty decent way to, you know, carry something like that around. For that moment that he put that message in his flak jacket, from that moment where it was just like I saw him and he was happy and everything was good, you know, gave him a hug, you know, everything like that, like, I felt so much better. And they rounded everybody up and I saw him, they got into the Humvee and he hit his head because he's like so tall. Then they were like, oh, you need to get back on the gun. So he like got out and he, you know, hopped up the hood. And he's just huge, you know, he's a huge dude, gets down into the turret. And I was like, later, man, you know, I'll see you soon, and be safe, you know. And I mean, he drove outside the front gate, and about 300 meters later, I just heard this massive explosion. I turned my back after they left the gate, and I started to walk back into where I was playing poker with the guys, and I sat back down, and I heard the explosion that killed him. And I, like, just right away, I felt it. Like, right away, I was just like, it was just like this gut-wrenching, like, it wasn't like, is he okay? I was just like, I just knew he was gone. Like, I just felt it. That's why I wear it, because he was just that good guy. The last thing that he did was to try and make me feel better. So I try to remember him every day, tell stories about him whenever I can. Just take him through my life, you know, because, you know, he doesn't get to have that anymore. So, yeah, that's why I wear it.